welcome to Players in Exile. My name is Phil, and in this video I'd like to share my thoughts on Kill Team Octarius. Now, as you can see behind me, I have my set. I have played my first game. I have looked at the rules. I found it a thoroughly enjoyable game. I think the tactics built into the game are strong, and even from just one game you can tell that they've actually thought about the way the game plays and what would make it tactically a good game to play. But I do have a couple of issues. Firstly, I have some issues with the core rulebook. It's got some lovely artwork in it. Admittedly, the 50 pages of it, there or thereabouts, are fluff, which is par for the course with Games Workshop. If you play Games Workshop games, whether you've got Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar, Warcry, pretty much any codex or army book, you're used to the fluff, and I'm not so worried about that. Then the rules start, and the rules tell you how to play. And there's a couple of key rules which I think are very badly signposted. They're here, they're in the rulebook, but they're very hard to find and they're causing a lot of confusion. Number one, this is page 60. Now I know you can't see it particularly very well. This is the start, this is the beginning of the firefight phase. This is where it tells you about performing actions. And there's lots and lots of text down the page about performing actions. And there's lots of more text about performing actions. And about here, there's a little section, and it quotes it just above the Overwatch section. It reads, "The controlling player does not need to declare all of their operative's actions when it is activated. Instead, they can perform an action and then decide the next action after seeing its effects." And here's the key statement. "Unless otherwise specified, an operative cannot perform the same action more than once during its activation." That's one of the most fundamental rules of the whole game. It means you cannot move, shoot, shoot. You cannot move, move, move. You cannot move, I don't know, attack, because it's hand-to-hand combat, attack, attack. You can't dash, dash, shoot. Not that you would dash, dash, shoot. You'd probably move, dash, shoot. But actually, that's actually really important. Dash, dash, shoot is something you would do with heavy weapons, because heavy weapons cannot move and shoot, but they can dash and shoot. That's something that's not too clear, but you learn that one. So you cannot, unless you've got something, for example, the Grey Knights have bolt discipline. And so you can spend a command point, it's a stratagem, and you can then shoot twice in the firefight phase. They also have an equivalent one to being able to attack twice. So there's stratagems that allow you to do so. There are ways to get around that limitation, but it is a really, really important limitation. And it is a one-line sentence buried just above Overwatch on page 60 of the rulebook, which I have seen so many people ask about. So many people are confused about it. I think a lot of people who have put up content on the internet, especially those early adopters who've got the rule books and rushed out their battle reports, have got that wrong and have confused people even more. You cannot do the same action more than once unless another rule specifies that you can. The next issue I have is with the line of sight rules. Page 17 in the rulebooks. Nice dark pages, actually. One of the cool things about that, I find, is that it's actually really easy to find this because it's dark pages, and so you can flick through very quickly and find them. But there's a visibility line, and to quote the rules, it says you can draw an imaginary, unobstructed straight line, known as the visibility line, 1 millimeter wide, from the head of the active operative's miniature to any part of the miniature of the intended target. It then goes on to give a couple of examples. It then talks about obscured, and it talks about a cover. Obscured says, regardless of whether the target operative has an engage or conceal order, if an obscuring terrain feature is in the way, an active operative may be unable to have line of sight to them. For an intended target to be obscured, the following must be true. The intended target is no more than a circle from a point at which a cover line crosses a terrain feature that is obscuring. See page 72. However, if the active operative is within triangle of a point at which a cover line crosses a terrain feature that is obscuring, that part of the terrain feature is not treated as obscuring. It's quite wordy, but the point is there. It starts talking about cover lines when you've just been reading about visibility lines. And yet, reading through the rules, cover lines aren't yet covered. They're covered in a single little section that says, to establish cover lines, the active operative's controlling player draws imaginary straight lines 1 millimeter wide from any part of the active operative's base to every part of the intended target's base. This, to me, It's like an afterthought. And if you've read all this and you haven't quite got to this bit, this makes no sense, because here you talk about visibility lines, here you talk about cover lines. And what it ends up basically saying is you can have line of sight, so an enemy operative can be visible, but they can also be obscured if there's a bit of cover in between you. If there's a bit of heavy cover that's in between the two models and the opposing model isn't within circle of that cover, then it can be obscured. Page 70 is well worth a read in the rulebook, but again, cover lines kind of buried. Once you understand those rules, it's fine. But if you're just learning the rules for the first time, and I don't learn the rules from reading rulebooks very well, and yet in my first game I was the one doing the reading because my opponent was as confused as I was, then you can easily find yourself making mistakes with the rules, and you could probably even end up playing the rules wrongly until someone comes along and corrects you. Other than that, we really enjoyed the game we played. The concealed or engaged tokens are, I think, not quite a touch of genius, but they are very, very clever. They are far more tactical than you first realise, because not only do they determine what your operative is going to do that turn, they very much determine what you will be doing next turn. And not because once they're concealed, they stay concealed, because you can change them, but it matters when you change them. If you decided to have an operative that was engaging, and you moved and you shot him when he was sat in cover, but he's still got his engaged side face up at the beginning of the next turn. If your opponent goes first, your opponent can shoot at him before you get a chance to perhaps move him back into cover and make him concealed. So there is very much a consideration that you have to make of where your opponent's troops are going to be and what you expect them to be doing the next turn. It's a little chess-like that you have to be thinking that extra turn ahead, and that makes it very, very strategic. And I found that very enjoyable. I'd also like to talk a little bit about the Compendium. The Compendium has been very divisive. It has kind of split people down the middle. It is very much just the equivalent of a Warhammer 40k 8th edition index, in that it covers as many different types of kill teams, whether it's demons, whether it's grey knights, whether it's craft worlds, whether it's greenskins, fruit, etc. I think it covers 19 of them in total, I counted. But it only gives you what are effectively basic rules for basic kill team units. And a lot of people are upset because it means a lot of the elite stuff that they were using from the old edition, they can't use at the moment. One thing to note is that it has become very apparent that the Compendium is riddled with typos. There are units with incorrect cover saves, there are units with incorrect movement stats. For example, I believe the Death Guard champion can move too fast, is the current consensus. Although that's only a consensus, there's nothing really to determine that's true until we get a fact. There's an Imperial Guard heavy with a 3+ save, which is like if wearing power armor. And there's some various other ones. I've seen some issues with Tau as well. From my perspective, I played Grey Knights and found it was perfectly usable. The game was incredibly balanced. I played against Craft Worlds. My opponent had a combination of Rangers and Guardians. We found the Guardians' heavy weapon platform to be a bit rubbish, to be perfectly fair, but it did take out my heavy weapon guy. They sort of shot each other and wiped each other out, so perhaps it was fair. I found that I could use the units I wanted to use and had a really, really enjoyable game. I'm looking forward to how they expand Kill Team. My local game shop owner thinks that they're going to do a box set like this, 125 box set, every 3 months. I think that's overkill. I think we'll get terrain packs, different boards, and then rule books that feature a number of different kill teams. A lot of people online I have seen have also indicated that they think that the next books would have just 2 kill teams in it, much like the Octarius book, which is sat on a bookshelf just over yonder. Much like the Octarius book just covers veteran guardsmen and orc commandos, they think that the new books, which are going to come out, from what we understand, once every 3 months, are only going to cover 2 other kill teams. Which, by my math, means the compendium, as I've said, according to the back here, covers 19 kill teams. So you could argue that if they did just every 2 months release a book for 2 kill teams, that's 8 books plus 1 spare, so maybe 9 books. So it's 9 books, 3 months a book. 9 3s are 27. That's just over 2 years. Just over 2 years somebody could be waiting for their particular kill team codex. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they're going to release books that have got more than just 2 kill teams in them. I don't think we'll quite go the way that they went with Warcry, where we had the 4 different domains: death, destruction, order, and chaos. I think that's the 4. It would surprise me to see a unified chaos book for Kill Team that covers Traitor Marines, Thousand Suns, Death Guard, and Demons. That I could easily see, in all honesty. And you could have got a Xenos book, but if the Xenos book would have to cover Tyranids, Doomstealer Cults, Necrons, Craft Worlds, and Tau, seems like a bit too much. So I don't know I don't know. Genuinely don't know. I'm just sort of putting out my theories, but I think that for Kill Team to remain popular, Games Workshop are going to have to put out more than just 2 kill teams in a particular book. A lot of people think we're going to see lots of kill teams in White Dwarf because the next White Dwarf coming out has got Adeptus Mechanicus kill team in it. But from what I understand, that's a limited, very specific Adeptus Mechanicus kill team. I expect we'll see more of them in a bigger book. I think that's just a sample, just to whet people's appetites, keep people interested, maybe sell some Adeptus Mechanicus models, who knows. So there you go, that's my thoughts on Kill Team. I'm really looking forward to getting some more games in. Unfortunately this weekend I'm busy, but I shall probably play either during the week or the following weekend, and then try and get several more games in, and hopefully the games will become shorter as we know the rules. It is a great game, don't get me wrong. Yes, there are some issues with the rules being a bit vague. Yes, there's some typos in the compendium. I think the compendium does its job. I think it does it very well. I know it's expensive. I do think that perhaps it should have been included in the Octarius box set. But overall, Kill Team gets a thumbs up from me, and I am looking to play it more and more often. Probably a lot more than I'll ever play 40k, because it's just easier to go down my local game shop with 5, 10, maximum 14 miniatures and my little chits in a box. Thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and come back next time. My name's Phil, and this has been Players in Exile.